In the philosophy of science, there's this concept called a paradigm shift that can happen from one scientific model to another. For example, going from the geocentric model of the solar system to the heliocentric model changed everything in astronomy because we had the right perspective on science. This is a book by Thomas Kuhn called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. It's one of the models used in philosophy of science in explaining these shifts that happen. Now, of course, other models exist, Karl Popper, falsification, and so on and so forth. I believe it's time for a model shift in education. We need to be done with the traditional model of education. My question for you is, why are you using the traditional model of education when there's AI, there's Google, there's so much? And so here's a book called The Educated Child by William Bennett, who was Secretary of Education. Nothing wrong against having a set of goals and expectations for each grade level, but I think we've come to the third education revolution by Dr. Vishal Mangwaldi. He edited these essays or put them together. This is the time to start helping every child flourish in their gifts and talents. How do we do this? We do this by equipping them to figure out why they exist, what are they doing with the lives they've been blessed with. We also need to help every child to realize that they can learn almost anything they want effectively and efficiently without the standard education practices of fourth grade, learn this, fifth grade, learn that. We live in AI age. You can generate a textbook for almost any subject you want when you want it. So I don't understand why we're boxing ourselves. I understand that there's institutions and there's certain systems that are in place that basically will struggle to make that shift. But this message is to parents. Parents, what are you doing to make sure that your child is graduating high school with clear direction of where they're going in life, knowing exactly what they want to do with their lives? Here's the thing too. Modern education is failing people in two major ways. Two major ways where modern education is failing people. The first way that it's failing people has to do with the time wastage, which is part of what I'm discussing. Like, there's no reason why you should be learning fractions in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. There's no reason why you should be doing Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Pre-Calc when those three courses have a lot of overlap and you can do them in 2 years or less. Why are you doing it in 3 years with all the busy work and all the homework? We have a lot of young people talking about the fact that they're lacking sleep. They're busy. But do you know that they're busy wasting time, literally, and then they graduate high school and they don't know what they want to do with their lives? We got to change. And part of what I'm going to do is I have built education models, including one that is a year-round model. I believe in a year-round education model. Take breaks throughout the year. You can take up to 12 weeks off throughout the year. That's fine. You don't have to do it all in one, 3-month stretch because you forget things. Why don't we learn as we go? As a matter of fact, here's my question. Do you think Plato and Aristotle were like, hey, Plato, Aristotle tells Plato, hey, Plato, I gotta head out. It's summertime. I can't be following you around. I gotta go do other things right now. Is that how they looked at education, where they looked at it in the sense of, oh, it's time to take a break for 3 months. I'll see you later. And oh, by the way, during those 3 months, I'm not really gonna be learning much. I'm just gonna take a break. What if we visited education in a realm where there's a relationship involved of knowledge impartation that the student can still learn from the teacher? Maybe it's online, maybe it's courses, videos that have been recorded, but basically the coach is guiding the student, like year round. Hey, Johnny, you need to be working on Fourier transforms. Hey, you over there, work on the kinetic theory of gases and make sure you tell me how it came about during your, break. You can use the history of chemistry book, which we have right here from Oxford University Press. You can use books like that to help Johnny keep learning year round. This model of 3 months off in the summer, like, guys, we are deliberately putting ourselves in the dark ages, deliberately, by not visiting material or learning it well. And that's not the way to go. So think about Plato, think about Aristotle, think about Socrates, think about Newton, think about the great scientists and mathematicians of the past. Do you think they took 3 months off and just went and played games? I'm not saying people can't play. I'm saying that they need to carve out time to be learning deliberately, reading good books. So let me give you some books to consider. Parents, these are 2 books that I would encourage you to check out: The Virtuous Minds, Eloquence and Wisdom. These are great resources that will really help us rethink about how we're teaching. Let me grab a few more books here. Before I go on to the second problem with education, let me just show you this. These are a list of books that can help students to learn well. There's I have some of my books that I've written here. Booker T. Washington, Up from Slavery, will show them that they need to value learning. That's what this is about. And George Washington Carver, the famous scientist, agricultural scientist, worked with Booker T. Washington, right? Peak, deliberate practice. Students need to learn how to practice well. Sometimes it's knowing how to practice that's the problem, not if you practice, but are you practicing well? We have the 7 laws of teaching, which will help greatly with how teaching ought to be done. So students, as you learn, teach it to somebody else. Rethinking math learning. He has shown that you can learn in 3 months, you can learn all the math you need for a year. So why aren't we doing 3 to 4 math courses a year? That's my question. How to be a high school superstar. Cal Newport's book, the subtitle is A Revolutionary Plan to Get into College by Standing Out Without Burning Out. That's pretty cool. Then we have Mindset by Carol Dweck. You need to have the right mindset when it comes to learning. Mathematics for Human Flourishing. People need to learn that math is beautiful in and of itself. Like, math is beautiful even if it has no applications for what you're doing. It's just beautiful. Learning how to learn, how to succeed in school without spending all your time studying. And then a Thomas Jefferson Education, which is a great resource. These are some good books that can help us to teach students how to be good students. I have 2 more here. Sorry, I dropped mine. This is the book I wrote called Tools for Mastering Mathematics. I have a video playlist going for this one, and you can check it out. It shows students how to be very good at math, and that's part of what I want for every student. And then I just have a blank notebook here. Why do I have this? Because students just need to grab a few blank notebooks. Whatever topic you're learning, now you could do this virtually on a computer or iPad, but whatever topic you're learning, grab a book, write down the date, write down what you're learning. This is part of what Richard Feynman did too. Richard Feynman's approach was write down the things that you don't know as well and begin to work on learning those things well. Richard Feynman was unique because he was a physicist who was also good at educating people. His lectures were so good that there's a whole book, which I own one of them, that goes over his lectures on different branches of physics. You might know this, you might not, but sometimes people that are pretty sharp and smart in physics, they can't always explain things to us to understand, right? When I did my graduate work in physics, the professor would introduce the topic and I'm like, yep, I'm following you. This is going well. And then 17 minutes later, I'm like, yeah, where am I? What's going on? Like, what is going on here? I'm confused. They might start the lecture with saying, do you know what an MRI scanner does? I'm like, oh yeah, I want to learn that. 17 minutes later, I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, are we in English still? Okay, anyways, I'm teasing, but you guys get the point, is that we need to know and understand how to teach others what we learn, and people like Richard Feynman were good at that. Okay, so that's why we need a blank notebook to follow the Feynman approach, they call it. I'll make a different video on that. Email amos@gmail.com. Feel free to subscribe to this channel to follow our journey. You can also support the work I'm doing using the link in the description section, or just email amos@gmail.com and I'll send you more information. So the first area we're failing students in education is we're not teaching them how to be efficient learners and we're not helping them go far in their learning. The second way we're failing students is in what we're teaching them. Are we teaching them enough about truth and values? This is a book by C.S. Lewis called The Abolition of Man. And C.S. Lewis in his book has 3 major things he does. So let's look at the 3 things. So the book is a series of lectures written around 1943, and they critique the modern educational trends of that time in 1943. Particularly those that approach moral and value education with a sense of skepticism or relativism. This idea of moral relativism, that's true for you, but it's not true for me. And so Lewis argues that this approach undermines the objective notion of good and evil, which he refers to as Tao, representing universal values that transcend specific cultures and religions. He talks about the men without chests. The first lecture criticizes modern educators, whom Lewis calls conditioners, who teach that all values are subjective, leading to what he terms men without chests, individuals without a moral compass. Number 2, the way. In the second lecture, Lewis defends the idea of natural law. He argues against the idea that moral values are merely subjective or culturally relative. Number 3, the final lecture predicts the consequences of dismissing traditional values, resulting in what Lewis sees as the abolition of man. He argues that humans, having denied their nature and the objective moral order, might end up being manipulated or conditioned by those in power. Lewis's overarching concern is that by devaluing traditional moral wisdom and embracing a doctrine that denies objective value, humanity risks losing its humanity and becoming something less than fully human. We're seeing that happen right now, and sometimes science is allowing this to happen. Science, we need to stand for truth. God created them male and female. Biologists stand for truth. In broad daylight, you're watching things happen. What are you going to do about it? I'm not saying that there are not people who struggle with certain aspects of this issue or topic and need mental health support and so on. What I'm saying is as a field of study, what is science doing to advocate for truth? And that's why my goal in life is to raise the next generation of scientists, mathematicians, and thinkers who also know the history and philosophy of science, logic, and theology. That's my goal. Science cannot answer all the questions to reality. Some of that goes back to theology. Some of that goes back to logic. And so, what do we do to help our students not waste their time? I have a few books here. Well, not just waste their time, but learn on how to live. I have some books on just living life. We have David McCullough, Theodore Roosevelt. Let's learn how to suffer well and how to make sense of suffering. The Wright brothers, Innovation and Perseverance. Benjamin Franklin, the polymath of his own ranks, gifted mind, the man behind the MRI scanner, part of the biophysics there involved. Johannes Kepler. We have William Carey, who took the gospel to India. We have Joseph by Professor John Lennox. We have a book here, which is just a random book on, it's called The Math Fix, but talking about some of the problems in math education today. And then Finding Ultimate Reality by Dr. John Lennox. Dr. John Lennox met C.S. Lewis, by the way, or at least attended his lecture back in the day. And in this book, Lennox presents multiple important topics on Indian pantheism, monism, Greek philosophy and mysticism, naturalism and atheism, and then Christian theism. There is no reason to stay with the current course of affairs. We need to change to a model that allows students to have mentors year-round, coaches year-round, guiding them in their journey into why they were created, because they were created in the image of God for a purpose. That's really what education should be about. Education is, the word involves saying, it means to bring out. What are we bringing out in students? Are we bringing out the best in them? And thank you for watching this video up to this point. I'm going to end with something here that some might look at and say, oh no, that's controversial. You can't talk about that. But I really want to emphasize something. The children of today and the youth need direction and guidance. The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, then when he is old, he will not depart from it. And would you believe that there are teachers today that are teaching children moral relativism? C.S. Lewis saw this. Actually, I have a quick quote I'm going to pull up here from Revelation chapter 3, which is part of the solution, I would say, to our problem. But before I do that, I just want to say this. We have teachers that are teaching children things that are not true, things that are ruining the lives of the children. And that is not good. That is not good. We need teachers to teach truth. There is morality. Did you know that when you say things like there is no absolute truth, you've just made an absolute truth claim, which thereby nullifies the very thing you said? Because if there is no truth, then how would you know there is no truth? If there is no truth, then there is no truth is not true. If everything is relative, then everything is relative and shouldn't be taken as absolute. Do you see the problem we're getting into with self-contradictory arguments in our culture? Postmodernism. There is truth. There has to be truth in order to make a claim about truth. The question then is, what is the truth? And so I believe that the truth comes from the Bible, from the life of Jesus Christ, from the gospel of Jesus, that Jesus came to the world. He died for the sins of mankind. Nobody is perfect. I have sinned. We have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and he has made a way for us to know him. This is part of what people like James Clerk Maxwell and Michael Faraday will teach on their Sundays or on their Bible studies, and then they do science on Mondays through Fridays. So there's nothing wrong with believing in Jesus Christ and the Bible and also doing science and mathematics. Here's what I think the solution to America's problem. I'm going to talk about America just for a second. America has some challenges, and I'll tell you part of what America can do to see a change, and then we'll wrap up for the day. It says, and to the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things says the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot. I could wish you were cold or hot. So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth. Because you say, I am rich, I have become wealthy, and I have need of nothing. I do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in the fire, that you may be rich, and white garments that you may be clothed, that the shame of your nakedness may not be revealed. And anoint your eyes with eye salve, that you may see. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Therefore be zealous and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and dine with him, and he with me. To him who overcomes, I will grant to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. In the book of Revelation, Jesus speaks to John, the beloved, and tells him things in the 7 letters to the 7 churches. And this is one of the 7 churches, the last one. And I just want you to watch here how cool logic can be kind of looked at in this context. It says that these people thought that they were rich, but they were poor, right? So they were poor. It says that they were poor. It also says that they were, let me go back to it here. Wretched, miserable, and they were poor, blind, naked. And then in verse 18, isn't it cool that it says, buy from me gold that is refined? And the only way that that can happen is if somebody who can do it does it for us. And that's why salvation is discussed in the Bible, because Jesus paid the price that we could not pay. But notice that he talks about their poverty, and he tells them that he can give them gold, which will make them rich. He goes on to say that, I'll give you white garments. So that will deal with the nakedness problem. They're going to get white garments. And that also represents the topic of holiness, which is taught in the Bible. And then he talks about anoint your eyes with eye salve. So he gives them a way that they will be able to see. He's going to do a work that they may see. He also talks to them and says, let's go back. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in fire, that you may be rich, white garments, that you may be clothed, and that the shame of your wickedness may not be revealed, right? There's the nakedness, there's effects of nakedness, right? That there's a shame and so on. But he gives them, that you may be clothed, that the shame of your nakedness might not be revealed. So I would put the nakedness piece with wretched and miserable, and he's giving them white garments. He's giving them that which will make them not to feel shame and miserable and wretched. Of course, when you're rich, you're not going to be wretched and wearing things that are like rags, right? So I'm ending this video with that as a word of encouragement to America and Western nations. We've become so rich that we've forgotten. Many Western nations have become so rich materially in some ways that they've forgotten the meaning of life, how to live. They're inventing ways to sin against the one who created them. So this is Amos the STEM guy, Amos the math guy, but ultimately we need to have education that involves helping people live lives that make sense. And that begins with believing that their lives have purpose and meaning, which can only happen if they were created. They were created in the image of God. The evidence for God's existence is overwhelming. It's all over the place. As a matter of fact, if you don't believe that there's a creative agent, if you don't believe that God made the world, right? I'm speaking God of the Bible personally, but I'm just saying, if you don't believe that there's any agent that created the world, then how do you explain the laws of physics, the laws of chemistry, the laws of biology, the laws of geology, and so on and so forth? How do you explain all of these being true independently of one another? That's a lot of faith, right? And so I want to encourage you to read the book of John. If you've never read the Bible, to read the book of John and see more about this God that created the heavens and the earth as he revealed himself through Jesus Christ in the Bible. Thank you for watching this video. Please feel free to subscribe, like, and share with others. I look forward to speaking more about these topics, but I really think that our education revolution time has come. Let's move to the third education revolution. God bless you and have a blessed day.